Alright. Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Memorial Day weekend. I had a very busy day yesterday, so I am so glad that I have an extra day to recover. Yeah, I was telling Tom this earlier, but the easiest way to wear me out is to have me socialize for a couple of hours on end, which apparently frustrates the hell out of my family members. Still don't know why, but I conked out pretty early last night. I'm probably gonna conk out early tonight, but that doesn't matter. Today, I am just going to enjoy the day, and tomorrow I am going to sleep in and be the nice little cushy princess I was apparently born to be. Anyways, so, had some mixed feedback when it came to the poll for this Sunday. So I initially did, okay, guys, you want more Shadow, more Dracula, different broadcast, or a different book? And then we had a three-way tie, which, very frustrating. But from that three-way tie, it's like, okay, you guys want another radio broadcast, so what should I do? More Shadow or another broadcast? And one of you, most likely Mike, has said that you wanted a different broadcast. Okay, that I can work with that. I can absolutely work with that, my darlings. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to go to our nice little radio player's script place, and we are going to find something that we can read today. Alright, so we got a couple of options here. Let me get some chapstick on me. Alright, so what should we do? I'm thinking you guys like more dramas than comedies. The comedy is probably going to require a funny voice, and I cannot do funny voices very well, so we're going to go with dramas. So I'm looking at The Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger sounds like it's pretty good. I have seen a lot of it. I know of the recent movie with Johnny Depp in it, which was very odd, but you know what, let's go ahead and look at The Lone Ranger. We'll do the first show. Okay, so Lone Ranger first show. Let's look up what that would have sounded like. All right. Alright, Nikola Tesla Wireless. We'll view the full podcast here. Let's see. Okay, so that's the music going on for it. Wow, 21 years for a radio show. That's not that bad. Okay, so we got that. So, okie dokie. I'm gonna go ahead and take us back to this page a little bit. Boop. There. Sorry. Alright, so we're going to keep that there. So, Hi-yo, Silver! Pew, pew. The fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-yo, Silver, the Lone Ranger. This is the legend of the man who buried his identity to dedicate his life to the service of humanity and country. This is the story of the origin of the Lone Ranger. Early settlers in the West had to be brave men and women ready to fight for their lives at any moment. There was danger on every side. There were wild beasts, savage Indians, and Cavendish gang. Butch Cavendish headed a pack of outlaws. They struck without a warning to steal and kill. Open fire on that wagon train. Wipe them out to their last man. Noises made during gunfight. The Cavendish gang attacked ranches and towns as well as wagon trains. Everyone feared Butch Cavendish. His gang grew rich and powerful. Finally, the Texas Rangers learned where Butch Cavendish and his gang were hiding. 6 Texas Rangers guided their horses along the canyon floor to arrest the Cavendish gang. Presently, Captain Reed signals to halt. Rein in, boys. Wait here until the scouts return. Do you think it was a good idea to send Collins, our guide, on ahead? It was Captain Reed's younger brother who asked the question. The captain explained that Collins, who was not a Texas Ranger, was the only man who knew the country and who could scout ahead for information. Then, while the Texas Rangers waited for the guide to return, the captain said to his younger brother, "My wife and son are coming from the east. If something happens to me and you survive, well, I know you will take care of her and Danny. Right. I'm going to count on you to resign from the Rangers and work that silver mine we stalked out. See that my son and his mother get my share. I promise. Here comes Collins, the scout." Whoa there. Good news, Captain Reed. It's all clear. I scoured the rim on both sides of the canyon and found no sign of the Cavendish outfit. All right, boys, let's go. Collins, the guide, lagged behind unnoticed by the Texas Rangers, who moved in single file along the floor or rock-strewn canyon. They didn't know that Collins had lied, that Butch Cavendish and his killers were waiting in ambush on the rim on both sides of the gap. Here comes those Ranger boys, just as Collins told us. We can't get down to the floor of the canyon in time, and it will be a long way back, and it will be dark in half an hour. Okay. So we will just keep pouring lead into them from up here until we are sure they're dead. Then we won't be taking any chances. Now open fire! The Rangers leaped from their saddles and spread out as they returned the fire from both sides of the canyon. Soon, 4 of the Rangers were killed. Captain Dan Reed and his brother, wounded several times, kept fighting side by side. Oh. Then the captain fell, mortally wounded. Then, a moment later, his younger brother. Oh. The last of the Rangers slumped to the ground. The outlaws waited and watched for any signs of life of the Rangers. Then rode away, convinced that all 6 men in Bryant's Gap were dead. Sunset came, then darkness. That night, an Indian examined the bodies by moonlight. After examining the first 5 men, he muttered softly, them dead. Then he came to the 6th man, the younger brother of the captain. This man, alive. The Indian lifted this man tenderly in his strong arms and carried him to a nearby cave where he bathed and dressed the wounds. Then he took a spade from one side of the cave and returned to the canyon, where he worked steadily until the dead men had been buried. Returning to the cave, he sat watching through the remaining hours of the night. Daybreak found the rangers stronger, but by nightfall the wounds had become infected. The Indian called on all his knowledge to treat the wounded man. He went day and night without rest. It was morning of the 4th day when the wounded ranger opened his eyes, and for the first time the Indian saw them clear and calm. You awake? Me glad. Yes, so weak. You wounded bad. I remember an ambush. That's right. Me find you in canyon. Carry you here to cave. It's daylight. It morning. Then I must have been unconscious all night. It's several days since fight in canyon. Several days? There's something familiar about you. And you remember, many years ago, you only boy. You find Indian boy in trouble. You save life of Indian boy. Yes. Your name is Tonto. That right. Years ago, you called me Kimosabe. That right. You still Kimosabe. It mean faithful friend. Tonto, there were 6 of us in the canyon. The others. What about the other rangers? Other rangers, all dead. Dead? One of them was my brother. You, only ranger left. You, Lone Ranger. The Lone Ranger. Tonto, those killers know me by sight. If they know one has escaped, they'll look for him. Them not know one escaped. Tonto bury 5 men. Make 6 grave. Crook think you die with others. Good. Then my name shall forever be buried with my brother and friends. From now on, my face must be concealed. A disguise, perhaps, or a mask. That's it. A mask. I'm the only one who knows about the Cavendish gang. With your help, Tonto, I'll get every one of those crooks. In the ranger's eyes, there was a light that may have burned in the eyes of knights in armor. A light that, throughout the ages, lifted the souls of strong men who fought for justice, for God. I'll be the Lone Ranger. Alright, apparently we're skipping over these lines. I don't know why, but we are. This is the legend of a man and a horse and how they met. The story of the Lone Ranger and his great horse, Silver. Dude, wait, this is... So the origin of the horse is a separate story from the origin of the Lone Ranger. Okay. The Lone Ranger and Tonto were trailing the worst outlaw in the West. His name was Butch Cavendish. They had followed his trail for many weeks until finally they noticed that the hoofprints of the outlaw's horse were fresh. "We close to Cavendish now." "Yes, Tonto. He can't be far ahead. Him outrun us last time. Maybe you better we shoot on sight." "No. I want to take him alive." "That's him. Look out for the stray bullet. Over here. Could have been an ambush. Him right way." "Tonto, he missed me. But he shot my horse. Get after him. Get him a paint horse." Tonto's horse was tired and no match in speed for the animal Cavendish rode. The outlaw escaped. When Tonto returned from the futile chase, back, he found the Lone Ranger standing beside his dead horse. "A good horse, Tonto. Loyal, faithful, and brave. But my next horse must be faster. I wish that... Tonto... We've heard stories of a wild horse, a fiery white stallion." "Ah, him seen only over there, where Cavendish go." "We'll be on the lookout for the wild horse while we follow Cavendish." I'm just making up these tunes as I go along. Tonto's horse carried the Lone Ranger's saddle, his saddlebags, and vidal, while the masked man and Indian continued on foot along the outlaw's trail. When they reached the top of the hill... "Look, Tonto!" "Oh." They halted suddenly and stared at an awe-inspiring sight from down in the valley. They saw a great white stallion in a death fight with a giant buffalo. The horse was plunging, rearing, and charging, and dodging wildly, and the sun flashed on his coat as on a coat of polished silver. They realized that this was the legendary white stallion, the one ranchers and hunters have talked so much about. "Tonto, we must have that horse. I'll try to shoot the buffalo." "It's too far for pistol shot. I'll get closer before it's too late." As he ran downhill, the Lone Ranger watched the battle. The sleek white stallion was nimble and courageous, but his strength began to wane. The buffalo charged again and again. The splendid muscles of the white horse were slower in responding. Then, too slow, he was caught by the buffalo's charge. White crimson stained his pure white coat. Another charge. The white horse saw it coming, and he couldn't dodge. He staggered and fell. The monster drew back and lowered his head for the death charge. And then 2 shots rang out. The buffalo shuddered from the impact of the masked man's bullets. For an instant, he stood motionless, then fell. Critically battered and bruised, the white stallion lay quietly as the Lone Ranger bathed his wounds. During the next several days, the masked man and the Indian cared for the injured horse. Then the wounds were closed, and the horse's strength had returned. There was once more a fire in his eyes, a spring in his step, and his head was lifted proudly. "Tonto, he's himself again." "Ah, him plenty strong. Plenty good horse. I wonder if he'll take a saddle. Let's try. Steady there. Steady, boy. Me get him. Him run away. No, Tonto, wait. Let him go. I'd like to have that horse more than anything in the world, but he deserves his freedom. He fought for it. Him stop. He's turning to look at us. See how the sun reflects from his white coat. Ah, him look like Silver. Silver. That would be a name for him. Silver! Look at him. Silver! Here's Silver! Tonto, he's coming back. It's just as if he knew what I said. Silver! Silver, you beauty. Hand me the halter, Tonto. Uh-huh. As the mighty stallion felt the halter, he trembled as if from a chill. Every instinct told him that he must flee at once to preserve his freedom, and yet he stood his ground. It wasn't gratitude that kept him there, but it was something stronger, some mysterious bond of friendship and understanding. He heard the man's voice, and he liked it. Silver, Silver, we're going to be partners. Him let you use halter. Tonto, the saddle. Oh, no horse like that. Take saddle. There never was a horse like this. Now, Silver, we're going to work together. I gotta light some stuff on fire again. Fire. I like fire. Here we go. The horse was wild and unused to the ways of man and the weight of a saddle and rider, but the masked man was a kind teacher. He was gentle yet firm, and Silver was intelligent. The stallion seemed to sense the desire of the Lone Ranger and did his best to cooperate. He learned quickly, and after several days of training, he was steady. Follow me, Tonto. We're going after Cavendish. Come on, Silver. No hooves have ever beat the plains like those thundering hooves of the great horse, Silver. During the past few days, Cavendish had gotten far away, but the masked man and Tonto trailed him relentlessly with only a minimum of rest. It took days to cut down the outlaw's lead, but at long last Cavendish came into view. There he is! Come on, Silver! The mighty stallion responded with a new burst of speed. Pew, pew. Cavendish fired wild shots over his shoulder until the gun was empty. His horse, though powerful and fast, was no match for the charging Silver. Get up here! Come on! Pure panic ruled the outlaw's face. He heard the hooves beat ever nearer. Get up there! Come on! He heard the masked man shout, I want you, Cavendish! The masked man's avowed mission was accomplished. The last of the Cavendish gang was captured to be tried by law and punished for his crimes. But there were many others whose criminal plans were to be challenged by the Lone Ranger, his faithful Indian companion Tonto, and his great horse Silver. Hey-yo, Silver, away! Alright. Now here's just a word for all you fellows and girls who don't like the kind of cereal... Okay. Breakfast cereal commercials from the radio days. It always surprises me whenever we come across these, where it's like, oh yeah, they had commercials back then too. Just like we do here, except they were a lot more blatant about it. Alright. This is the legend of Dan Reed, the story of how the Lone Ranger found his only living relative. Give her a hand. A long line of prairie schooners moved westward through the valley. Among them, pioneers were families with all their worldly goods, and men on horseback who planned to seek their fortune in the new frontier. Also, there were several women who had joined the wagon trail to meet their husbands, who had previously gone west to make new homes. Suddenly, a blood-chilling cry rang out from the hills. Ah! I am not going to scream just because that is going to probably break my microphone, so forgive me for not giving convincing screams. Indians! Immediately, painted Indians charged from the hills on both sides of the valley. Me! Form a circle with the wagons! Doodle-doo. Me! Don't look out the wagon and hold my baby close. Heavily outnumbered by the Indians, the pioneers knew they had no hope, but they were determined to fight to the last man. It was the following morning when the Lone Ranger and Tonto came upon the scene of the massacre. Whoa, easy boy. Look at wagon. They drew reins and then examined the grim remains of wagons that had been looted, then buried, then burned. The bodies of brave pioneers who had died in their attempt to conquer the West. No survivors. Tonto? It looked like work of Apache. This must have been the wagon train that was heading for Fort Laramie. While Tonto watched, the masked man did a detailed inspection of the ashes of wagons and their contents. Presently, he found a small square piece of metal, a name plate from a trunk. He wiped it on his sleeve, then read it. Tonto, remember how the Cavendish gang ambushed my brother and the other Texas Rangers in the Bryant Gap? Me no. You ambushed too. I think my brother had an idea that something might happen to him. Just before we went into the gap, he called me inside and said, I want you to speak to you brother to brother. My wife and son are coming from the east. If something happens to me and you survive, well, I know you'll take care of her and Danny. I promised him I would, and then he said, I'm going to count on you to resign from the Rangers and work that silver mine we staked out. See that my son and his mother get my share. I made arrangements for an old man named Jim to work the silver mine and get enough ore to keep me supplied with silver bullets and what cash I need. Me no. And I'd need to wait until my brother's wife arrived from the east to decide what she would have done with her share of the silver mine. But now mi sorry, Kimosabe. Yes, Tonto. Linda and the baby boy were on this wagon train. Maybe woman and baby captured. Maybe them live. It's a faint hope, Tonto. Nevertheless, I shan't be convinced they're dead. We'll always be on the lookout for some clue that Dan Reed and his mother are alive. Wait, why does the wife not get a name? In the meantime, we must help make the West a place where massacres like this can't happen. Good luck with that, buddy. After reporting the massacre of the wagon train to Fort Laramie, the Lone Ranger visited his secret silver mine for a fresh supply of silver bullets. Then, with Tonto at his side, the masked man turned the blinding light of justice on criminals throughout the West. He was a mysterious figure identified only by his mask, a great white horse named Silver, and a ringing cry. Hey-yo, Silver! He was the Lone Ranger. Man, this radio broadcast is really going blitzkrieg, isn't it? So 13 years went by. The Lone Ranger was on the alert for proof that his brother's wife and son were dead, or if living, a clue might lead him to their side. Then his adventures took him to the high border country in Northwest, where he fought men who sought to rob an old lady named... Man, we are really going blitzkrieg. I have no idea who the hell Grandma Frisbee is. Called Grandma Frisbee, and her adopted grandson, a boy in his early teens whose name was Dan. The outlaws were bunkered, but the fight had been a great strain on Grandma Frisbee's aging heart. The masked man and Dan were with her in the small, neat bedroom. I'm tired. Try and get some sleep, Miss Frisbee. No, I want to be sure Dan will be all right. I want you to take care of Dan. I'll take care of him as if he were my son. You ought to know about his past. He is not my grandson. I'm not? But, Grandma Frisbee, I am. Let me talk. There's a small box under the bed. Hand it to me. I'll get it. Doodle-doo-doo. Grandma Frisbee held the box in her thin, blue-veined hands while she told of coming west in a wagon train. It was over 10 years ago. There was a fine lady traveling with the party, and she had a baby boy. Then the old woman told about the Indian attack. I crept away from the scene of the massacre and took the baby with me. I came up here near the border and raised Dan as my grandson. There's a little gold locket that he wore around his neck. There are pictures inside. The Lone Ranger opened the locket and looked at the faces of the man and woman as Dan spoke. I wonder who my parents were. I know them. This man, your father, is my brother. Your brother? He was a captain of the Texas Rangers and one of the bravest men in the country. Your mother was a fine lady from Virginia. Her name was Linda. Oh, now we get her name. I called the baby Dan because it's the name that's on the locket, but I never knew the last name. Dan's last name is Reed, the same as mine. Gosh! I've been looking for you, Dan, for many years, even since your father died. From now on, if you're willing, we'll travel together. Oh, I like that. I'm glad. Would you do just one thing for me before I sleep? Would you take off that mask and show me your face? Why, of course. Oh, it's a good face. Yes, a good face. Do-do-do-do-do. Dan, your grandma was a fine woman. It's too bad she had to go. She certainly was good to me. She and your father left you a great heritage. A heritage? Yes. They gave up their lives and handed down to you the right to worship as you choose. Wait, that's a theme? We have a theme in this story? Okay. And the right to work and profit from your enterprise. They have given you a land where there's true freedom, true equality of opportunity, a nation that is governed by the people, by law that is best for the greatest number. Your duty, Dan, is to preserve the heritage and strengthen it. That is a heritage of duty of every American. Do, 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 do. This is a story that tells how... Oh my god. Alright, I'm getting another beer. 2 seconds. this radio broadcast is super all over the place. I was hoping I would learn a little bit more about the Lone Ranger with this broadcast, but I know absolutely nothing. Okay. How about we do this? We're going to learn a little bit more about the Lone Ranger. Yeah, we're canceling out of you. Yeah, I know about the Lone Ranger TV show. And I know, with it, at least with the original TV show, there's a great irony where, you know how in the recent movie they had Johnny Depp play Tonto, and it's like, why the hell is a white man playing the Indian? But if I remember correctly from the original TV series, the guy who played Tonto was an actual Native American. So I was like, how the hell is the 50s version a hell of a lot more diverse than the 2010s version? That is so bizarre. Okay. Was robbed. CinemaSins. There is so much wrong with CinemaSins. Bass Reeves. And then of course there's an 81 movie. Interesting. Is The Shadow better than most superhero movies? A lot of people are arguing that 90s movies of like The Shadow and Dick Tracy were a lot better than modern movies. I don't know if I would say better, but definitely more stylized. Let's look at this video.
TV Crazy Man here. In this video, I take a look back at the legendary Lone Ranger TV series.
Okay, this is TV Crazy Man here. Not my video, but this is TV Crazy Man.
You all alone now. Last man.
Starring Clayton
Okay, that guy was definitely white. Never mind.
Moore, Jay Silverheels, and John Hart. First, we'll look at some funny goofs and amazing trivia facts you might not have known about this classic TV series that made a masked man a legend on television. So hang on tight, it's going to be a fun ride with amazing stars when they were young and connections to other superhero legends you might not have even guessed.
You
Okay, I could definitely see Green Hornet.
are Lone Ranger. Hold it.
Yeah, I didn't use any editing tricks. That's the way it really happened.
Hold it.
Believe it or not.
Okay.
Hold it.
Okay, so this is more like a goof compilation than anything.
Back in the day, they didn't always use stuntmen. Often they just used dummies to do falls, which were usually pretty noticeable. Like when this bad guy from the movie Lone Ranger in the City of Gold falls suddenly. Of course, at least he didn't scream like a girl before turning into a falling dummy like this guy from episode 2 of The Lone Ranger.
Okay, that's pretty funny. But that's not exactly what I was going for. I thought there was more, like, info about the Lone Ranger. Like, there has to be more.
Saddle up, partner. We've got a remarkable ride ahead of us. I present to you the Lone Ranger.
The Lone Ranger.
Not just the scourge of outlaws across Texas, but a pioneer behind an entire emerging genre. The Lone Ranger's life may be steeped in mystery, but this classic 1950s series has plenty of secrets and wild stories ripe for the picking. How did an ABC series turn an opera song into a horseback riding anthem? And
Well, just like how Instagram or Vine turned the can into a song about just ridiculousness.
why was the U.S. Postal Service involved? I'm nostalgic
Okay, now I have that question.
Nick with Do You Remember, here with all the answers. And if you enjoy this ride, you best give her a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an adventure. But without further ado,
The Lone Ranger.
Hail Silver! Away!
tuning in. Before we could even see the Lone Ranger with his wide-brimmed hat and trusty mask, his adventures were first heard on the radio. The Lone Ranger and Tonto premiered with the same title, playing on WXYZ Detroit.
But when I hear a train whistle, symbolizes to me the growth of the West.
Credit is given to the station owner George W. Trendle, and of course the show's writer Franz Streicher.
Holy shit, he looks like a model. Look at that dude. He looks like a model. Look at that face, that bone structure. Men really did look better back then. What the hell? I want a refund! No, sorry, Tom. I love you very much, baby, but you gotta admit, look at that guy. Look at him.
Turned out the radio show was a huge hit, but they didn't make the transition to the small screen just yet. First, Stryker penned an entire series of books. The Lone Ranger even got its own comic series, and later on, of course, films. But it was the show, running from 1949 to 57, that put an image to this iconic character and cultural phenomenon. A few faces were behind the Ranger's mask while still on the radio, with the Lone Ranger being voiced by... Wait, it still can't be a mystery, right? Well, Earl Grazer gave life to this crime fighter for over 1,300 episodes. But he wasn't receiving praise during the performance. That's because the creators decided that the Lone Ranger must remain a mystery.
Oh, fuck you. Why can't the dude be credited for his voice work? That's so stupid. I mean, how many little kids never got the chance of meeting the voice for the Lone Ranger? How many kids would be just been ecstatic, even if they knew, okay, this dude is not the Lone Ranger, just to hear him do the voice of the Lone Ranger? That would have just made their fucking day. Just like hearing Mark Hamill do the Joker impression, or hearing James Earl Jones do either Simba or Darth Vader. Like, how many kids would have just been fucking ecstatic just to hear that? So that's stupid.
So his identity was kept secret from the general public. Apparently one night Grazer was at a nightclub when a prize was offered for the best hi-yo silver shout, most like the Lone Ranger. Naturally, Grazer entered the competition and didn't win.
That's like when Charlie Chaplin entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest and didn't win. Or Dolly Parton entering like a Dolly Parton impersonation contest and didn't win. That is so fucking hilarious.
Yikes. Breaking ground. The Lone Ranger as a TV series is generally agreed to be the most recognizable and most popular version of the character. I mean, TV, right? This figure became a cultural icon, but that's not the only way this series shaped TV, because it shaped an entire genre. Before guns...
Oh, that's interesting. Again, I love learning about these old characters because you get to see the groundwork of how modern media worked. and how modern media was shaped. I'm sorry we're taking over Slow Down Sunday here. It's just, I don't exactly feel like reading scripts right now. I'm sorry. But I think we're gonna have some fun. Yeah? We're gonna have some fun.
Smoke and Matt Dillon blazed into the saloon.
Gunsmoke. That was actually, hold on. Yeah. Those are two of the scripts right here. Huh. Okay, so that's just a script. And again, just a script. So, it's not so much like The Shadow where they have multiple scripts here. Maybe I'll look for a different website for scripts. Let me know of a different website that could be helpful for us, guys.
Or Zorro cut down the baddies. Even before Wagon Train found land to settle in, there was one, the Lone Ranger. Although some credit Hopalong Cassidy being the first Western series in June of '49, it was largely edited from previous films. So when the Lone Ranger rode to town in September of 1949, it was so successful it stayed for most of the 50s. And this show deserves the credit for establishing a long-running Western series. We've got rewinds on many Western shows, and it's all thanks to the one that paved the way for the rest. My cowboy hat's off to you, Mr. Reed. You've got mail. We all have our national heroes, some real, some fictional, that embody the values and feats we wish for ourselves and those around us. And the Lone Ranger has time and again been named such a person. So much so that in 2009, when the US Postal Service put together a commemorative stamp collection honoring early and influential US shows, the Lone Ranger was of course featured. The stamp shows the Lone Ranger as played by Clayton Moore, along with Silver, of course.
Well, of course you can't miss Silver. Why would you have a postal selection of the Lone Ranger without including Silver? Men love horsies. My boyfriend has fully become Tom has fully become Ken from the Barbie movie, where he's just become obsessed with horses, and now he really, really, really wants to go horseback riding, and he really, really, really wants to do those horseback riding trail things. Men love horsies. I find it so funny that horsies have become something for women to love, but if anything, I have known way more men who are into horses than women. You know, maybe it's because I'm a suburban chick, where I'm surrounded by suburbanites or city girls. So it's just, I've known more men who are fascinated with riding horses than women. It's so bizarre.
So among that collection, Lassie, The Tonight Show, The Twilight Zone, I Love Lucy, and other titans from those years.
The Red Skeleton is hilarious. I remember watching a couple of skits at my grandparents' house, and Red Skeleton is hilarious.
Who out there grabbed some of those retro stamps for your collection? Let me know in the comments below. Camp Trustworthy. Reed took up the title of the Lone Ranger, but was also a term of enduring friendship, thanks to Tonto and the phrase Kimosabi. Within the franchise lore, Kimosabi is Tonto's name for our masked hero, and comes from a Potawatomi term meaning trusted scout or friend.
Why, you Kimosabi.
And that's such a cute little thing between the two of them, where Tonto just refers to him as trusted friend, and Kimosabi, okay, I saw that word and I immediately thought, that sounds like a Japanese word for some reason. But we're not going to get into that rabbit hole, because that ruffles quite a few feathers when it comes to the Native Americans, so we're not going to get into that topic right now. But I find it so cute that he just has his own little nickname for the Lone Ranger.
In reality, the term is pronounced Gimozabi, and
Oh, that definitely looks Japanese. Gimosabi.
means another person looks out for another behind the scenes. Radio show director Jim Jewell got the idea from a boy camp called Camp Kimosabi, just off Mullet Lake at the top of Michigan near the Great Lake Huron. Whistle while you work, if you can. You knew you were in for a wild western adventure when you heard that famous cry of "Hi-yo, Silver away."
Hi-yo,
But as empowering and blood-pumping as that call was, it existed because of not being able to do something. The first Lone Ranger for test shoots and early episodes was George Seaton, and when the original script called for the Ranger to whistle for his trusty horse, Seaton couldn't pull off an epic whistle. So as he tells it, he invented that cry to use instead, and it stuck around ever since.
Wait, that's the reason Hi-Yo Silver is around? That's the reason for that cry? I mean, I can't exactly pull out one of those, like, really high-pitched whistles either. The most I can do is... I don't know. I've seen those where you put your fingers between your lips like that, and... I don't know how that works. I don't know how that whistle works. Hold on. Let's see if we can do another bit of research here. Okay. How to do a high pitch whistle. Alright, let's I want to get something that we can
Today I'm going to show you how to whistle without your fingers. First thing you're going to want to do is just say the word Sam. Sam. Sam.
Sam.
And notice how
Sam.
the tongue forms in your mouth. Sam. And then the air goes over the tongue. Sam. And then second thing, lick your lips. Pull the gums up your lips over your gums. And then do it all over again. Sam. 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 And we're going to drop the Sam and just do S. And you can see how it's almost a whistle already. And it's just a short hop from here to actually whistling. And we're just going to purse our lips just a little bit more. So we're going to close them a little bit more. And then breathe out in a short burst.
I'm probably not doing this correctly. I can't do that cowboy whistle. I'm so mad at myself. I want to do the cowboy whistle. Maybe this will help.
How to whistle using your fingers. Roll your tongue back. Make kind of like a V with your fingers. Push bottom of your tongue backwards. Make that little triangle air hole and blow through the triangle. That's it. How to whistle using.
All right. Like, that's all I can do. I can't do that high-pitched cowboy whistle. I'm so mad at myself. I want to do the cowboy whistle. I hate that. Alright, let's listen to more of these facts before I get too depressed.
On the radio, the sound was an important sound cue, so listeners knew a writing sequence was beginning. But as for the start of each episode, the shouts of Hi-Yo Silver have been sampled by the longest tenured original Ranger himself, Earl Grazer, as well as the companionable Fred Foy, famous for his breathless intonation that became so popular to imitate. And Foy is widely known as the greatest announcer-narrator in the history of radio drama.
Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear.
A careful formula. Already a wildly popular radio show, the Lone Ranger TV series also enjoyed immediate popularity. By the 50s, its fame was so apparent, ABC knew it had to make a few accommodations. Typically, it aired on Thursdays and didn't post any reruns. With one exception, for a short while, ABC also aired it late on Fridays, in case you missed that pivotal Thursday slot.
I think that was a joke from, I think it was Back to the Future, where it's like, oh, I caught it on a rerun. I'm like, what's a rerun? And it was like in the 50s, and it's like, by that point, there would have been reruns. It's just, it's not the same as reruns today. Ew.
Another show must. No matter the situation the Lone Ranger found himself in, he could never stay captured by outlaws or lawmen for long. They had to keep these moments short, so the Ranger would never be unmasked. And what was never hidden was the Lone Ranger's moral code. The Lone Ranger led the fight for law and order across the plains. And to make him as clean a hero as possible, the writers made sure the Ranger never drank or smoked.
Because that's totally what a cowboy would do. Yeah, it's like, okay, I know I wasn't there. I don't know much about cowboy culture, but I have read enough Jonah Hex comic books to know that cowboys absolutely drank and smoke.
And only used violence when necessary. This last bit even played into his wardrobe. His origin story changes a bit between radio and TV, but overall the Lone Ranger gets his name by being the lone survivor of a horrible tragedy where he lost his family and co-rangers. His mask is made of fabric from his late brother's shirt, and his vest has
Oh, well, that was not in the radio broadcast.
silver bullets to remind the Ranger of the silver mine by his childhood home. And in keeping with his code of honor, he uses the expensive metal for his gun to remind himself life is precious and should not be fired upon lightly.
Okay, that's actually a fairly good moral message tied to the material of his bullets. Hold on, we gotta wait a few minutes. It's almost time. There we go. The kitties are getting their food.
Toro. The show may be named for one man, but he comes as half of an inseparable duo. What would the Lone Ranger be without Tonto, whose name is short and catchy, but also means stupid or fool?
Oh. Why would you name his sidekick that? That's actually, like, why the hell would you do that?
In Spanish. So, in Spanish dubs, they rename him Toro, meaning bull, which is certainly more powerful if you ask me. But among the Michigan Native American language, Tonto is supposed to mean wild one, being very adventurous and inspiring.
It was one of those cases where it meant one thing in a different language, but it means a completely different thing in another language. The word puta. In, I think it's the Filipino language, puta is the name of a sweet. However, if you say that around a Spanish-speaking person, puta means something very, very different that you absolutely should not call anybody. Alright, but, okay, so Tonto in one region means wild one, but Tonto in Spanish basically means stupid. Alright.
Tonto was created so the Lone Ranger would have someone to talk to, but it worked out brilliantly. As for Tonto's actor, scriptwriter Fran Stryker insisted on an actual Native American for the TV show. Jay Silverheels was the son of a Mohawk chief living.
Oh, he was actually Native. Oh, I'm so happy. But then again, that makes it even more dumb that a TV series from the fucking 50s got themselves a Native American to play a Native American, but not a 2010 film. How is that possible where the 1950s version is more accurate than the 2010s version? How do you do that? Ugh.
in Ontario's Six Nations Reservation. The sport lacrosse traces its origins back to the Indigenous of Canada, and Silverheels himself was a star of the sport before he decided for a total change of scenery and moved to Hollywood. But that athleticism was a good thing. It gave him a leg up as a skilled stuntman. To the opera. You lean back in a plush chair and hear an 1800s overture by Rossini. And surrounded by all this fancy pageantry, you feel ready to ride off into the sunset on your trusty steed. Music tells half the story of any production. It's that final ingredient in getting a scene's flavor just right. So an icon like the Lone Ranger needed a memorable tune to complete his whole aura, appearance, actions, and sound. And throughout the radio program, TV show, and movies, the Lone Ranger's theme has been none other than the William Tell Overture, one of composer Rossini's very last of his 39 operas, and dates all the way back to 1829.
Why does that guy look so familiar to me?
And it wonderfully sets the fast-paced mood for the Lone Ranger. But the influence went both ways. There's even a phrase that goes, quote, "An intellectual is one who can listen to the William Tell Overture without thinking of the Lone Ranger." Yeah, that's not happening here.
Well, it's one of those stupid ideas where it's like, oh, if you knew this artwork before it was used by such and such property, then you're a true intellectual. But in reality, I think it's like the property does help people discover new stuff from that property. Like maybe kids listen to the Lone Ranger and they're like, oh, that theme music is pretty cool. And then later in life would go into the opera and learn more about opera because, oh, I remember this music from the Lone Ranger. So it's like, I think it's dumb to poo-poo something like, oh, if you can think of this piece of music without the Lone Ranger, then you're a true intellectual. I think it's stupid to poo-poo the Lone Ranger in that way. It's like, sure, fine. A lot of people think of the Lone Ranger when they hear that piece of music. So fucking what? Grow the fuck up.
And it's hi-ho, silver away into the clubhouse turn. And Schwazzy has the lead.
Transcending the mediums. The Lone Ranger is one of those few characters that's appeared in every entertainment medium out there. And not just like The Simpsons making a spoof of it.
And Nelson's a raccoon.
I'm not a raccoon, I'm the Lone Ranger. I'm too poor to afford the hat.
It started with radio.
Oh, poor Nelson. Nelson was one of those Simpsons characters where I actually started liking him after a time, where it's like, yeah, he was the bully character, but after a bit of time, it's like, one, you can't help but feel bad for the guy, but also it's like, okay, he's actually a pretty okay kid. He is an okay kid, it's just he had a rough background.
Then moved to TV. We touched on the comic book issues, with the original Dell Comics getting 145 issues. And then there's been updated releases too. Then of course there's the films throughout the decades. And Silver even wrote up in cartoon form, drawing in younger fans as they all crowded around for the weekend fun.
You'll have to get by me first.
And jumped to 1991, and he even got his own video game. The Lone Ranger Will Never Die. But all good things come to an end. Like a meandering survivor after a hard day, the Lone Ranger traced a ragged path through success to the end of the television series itself. It ran for 221 episodes across 5 seasons in 9 years.
Not that bad, honestly.
Briefly, fans had to reconcile with Clayton Moore leaving the show to be replaced by John Hart. The change was not popular and lasted 52 episodes. By the show's 5th year, ownership transferred from the radio show's station owner, Trendle, to producer Jack Rather, and one of Rather's first moves was bringing Clayton Moore back. And more changes came in 57, like investing money into filming in color. The Lone Ranger may have started as the first of its kind, but by the mid-50s, it wasn't alone by a long shot. It officially had steep competition from Maverick, Gunsmoke, Cheyenne, and many more. Then Rather made the biggest choice of all. He decided not to negotiate with ABC for another season. All this in hopes of turning the Lone Ranger from a small screen hero into a film franchise. So in the
Okay, this is going to be a hot take of me. And I think this is the big reason why the Dick Tracy movie and the Shadow movie probably didn't ring as positively as they could have. Or even the Spider-Man movies. And this is because stuff like the Shadow, Dick Tracy, Spider-Man, comic books in general, they were not written to be movies. They were written to be a serial format where it's like, tune in next time to hear the next episode of Batman or whatever. And it wasn't meant to be like a full arc. It was supposed to be like episodic things where you like tuned in to see what adventures our protagonist is going in now. It was never supposed to be a full arced movie, and a lot of the elements that made that franchise what it is, it came in periodically. It was not something that was always there. It's very rare in a franchise where all of the elements of the character were there at the beginning and there at the end. It is rare for that to happen. So, with something like the Lone Ranger, like, I don't think a film franchise would have worked at all. I don't think it would have worked at all. Just because he wasn't meant to be a movie character. He was a TV character. And it's fine that he's a TV character, but you just gotta recognize that that's who he is.
In the place of another 36 episodes throughout the year, we got 1956's Lone Ranger film and 1958's The Lone Ranger in the Lost City of Gold. This was TV at its roots.
Lassie!
A powerful formative start to the Western genre as a whole. So what surprised you the most about the first of its kind, The Lone Ranger? Did you or your parents listen to the radio show back in the day? Or was Clayton Moore always your ranger? Did anyone out there enjoy the most recent Johnny Depp Tonto 2013 version?
I'm gonna guess no. Again, why the hell did they get a white guy? Like, I seriously doubt, like, if they tried to make the argument of, oh, we just couldn't find a Native American who wanted to play this role, I'm going to say bullshit. I am very certain that there were plenty of Native Americans who are happy to play this role. It's just they didn't want to actually cast them. I want to see the comments here. Let's see. Tonto is always my favorite. Loyal and brave, and wonderfully so real. Way ahead of its time to cast Jay Silverheels as Tonto. How proud he must have been, and not a silly sidekick like most others. He was in every way an equal to the Ranger. Wonderful casting with such an early era in TV. Yeah, it's actually quite progressive when you think about it, because he was on the actual Native American playing a Native American role. Like, the Lone Ranger bucked the trend where white people would either put on blackface, yellowface, redface, whatever, and it's like, no, we are going to get an actual Native American to play this role, which is honestly fantastic that they did that. Alright, so great memories, Clayton Moore. It was a disgrace that Clayton Moore wasn't allowed to wear the mask when he went to public events in the 70s. He was forced to wear sunglasses as a substitute to keep from being... Wait, what? He wasn't allowed to wear the damn mask? Why? He was the fucking Lone Ranger. Why wasn't he allowed to wear the damn mask? That is bullshit. Oh my god. Saturday morning was when we watched it during the 50s and 60s as young kids. Loved the show. Clayton Moore was my Lone Ranger. I think that's a big thing because a lot of TV producers still don't get it. But once you have an actor who embodies the role of a certain character so much, if you try to replace them like a cog in the machine, you're gonna get backlash. Alright. What are my notifications? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry this is becoming basically the Lone Ranger movie. I'm honestly thinking about replacing Slow Down Sunday with something different because I do love reading the original materials, but at the same time, it's... You played the Lone Ranger, but I'll read that in a minute. But like I was saying, I'm thinking about replacing Slow Down Sunday with something else, just because, frankly, I'm having way more fun just researching these different characters and different people than I am reading the source material. I mean, I will read the source material, but honestly, I'm having way more fun looking at the behind the scenes. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm just having so much more fun doing this kind of stuff. So let me know if you want me to keep with the Slow Down Sundays or you want me to replace it with something else, because I am willing to do either way. So let's look at this unseen video. Yeah, we gotta fill out the questionnaire. Alright, I've heard of them. Submit answer.
For years, he rode across TV screens as the perfect hero. Then suddenly, in 1952, Clayton Moore disappeared from the show. Nobody knew why. Was it money? Was it control? The replacement actor failed badly. When Moore returned, he never spoke about what happened. Then, in the 1980s, a shocking lawsuit tried to strip away his mask forever. The real man behind the Lone Ranger fought battles far darker than any villain on the show. Jack Carlton Moore was born on September 14, 1914, in Chicago. He was the youngest of 3 sons. His father, Charles, was a real estate broker. The family was financially stable, even during the Great Depression. While many families were losing everything, the Moores had a live-in maid and even a vacation home in Canada. That comfort gave young Jack something most kids didn't have: freedom to dream and explore. But instead of following his father's wish to become a doctor, Jack found himself pulled toward performance and physical challenges. As a child, he was already different. By age 8, he became a circus acrobat.
Damn! Kiddo was ready to roll at 8. That's quite impressive.
He wasn't just playing around, he trained hard. During summer trips to Canada, while other kids swam and played, Jack was doing flips and hanging from trees like a gymnast. It paid off. By the time he turned 19, he was part of a professional trapeze group called the Flying Bears.
Oh, that's such a cute little name.
He wasn't just a performer, he was the catcher, the one who had to catch others mid-air. It was dangerous and demanding, but he thrived on it. That same year, in 1934, the Chicago World's Fair opened. Millions came to see the future, and Jack Moore was right there, performing high above the crowds. He did shows every day, dazzling audiences with his strength and precision. It wasn't just entertainment, it was exposure. People started to notice him. Talent scouts saw more than just his flips. They saw the camera-friendly face and charisma. That led him to a new world: modeling.
Modeling? Yes, because nothing says I have charisma and personality like modeling. You know Zoolander? That comedy movie? I remember it was like I Love the New Millennium, one of those shows. and it touched on the subject of Zoolander, and one of the commentators, who apparently was like either a male designer or whatnot, was like, okay, Zoolander, stone cold documentary. They, the male models, are really like that. So I feel like that's kind of a downgrade for him to go from acrobat to a model. Because from what I've heard, yes, those models are beautiful, but there's a reason that they are only known for their looks.
In New York, Moore signed with the John Robert Powers Agency. It was a big deal. Powers was one of the top modeling agencies of the time. Moore's tall frame, strong jawline, and bright eyes made him a perfect fit. Through the late 1930s, his face showed up in ads, catalogs, and magazines. He looked like the American ideal. Modeling gave him income and industry connections. But still, something was missing. Photos were silent. Jack wanted to move. In 1938...
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can go from having a pretty face.
He made a risky decision. He left New York and went to Hollywood. He didn't have a big role waiting for him, just hope, a portfolio, and his athletic skills. In those early years, he took whatever he could, bit parts, background roles, stunt work. But while others complained, Moore treated it like training. He watched how actors delivered lines. He learned how cameras moved. He understood timing, lighting, and presence. Slowly, he got better. Then came 1940. A producer named Edward Small stepped in. He liked Jack's look and talent, but thought his name was too plain. So, Jack became Clayton Moore. That name change wasn't just...
Yeah, I mean, no bashing on his birth name, but Clayton Moore does sound a lot more, I don't know, masculine than Jack Moore. I don't know, I can't explain it to you. It just does.
Just about branding. It marked a shift. Clayton Moore now believed he was meant for the screen. It gave him a new identity, one he fully embraced. That same year, Clayton married Mary Frances.
Aww.
They flew to Las Vegas for the wedding, joined by Mary's mother. A Hollywood elopement full of excitement. But it didn't last. Less than 2 years later, they were divorced.
Aww. And they give us millennials crap for divorcing too early.
Their lives pulled in different directions. She later acted in a science fiction serial. He was just about to break through. In 1942, Republic Studios cast Clayton in Perils of Nyoka. It was a hit. He played Dr. Larry Grayson, a character who rode horses, fought enemies, scaled walls, and even performed brain surgery in caves.
What? Okay.
It was over the top, but Clayton made it believable. His face showed sincerity. His body did the stunts. That serial cost $175,010 to make, a lot at the time. But it paid off. Moore proved he had star power, and Republic quickly saw him as their next big serial hero, bigger than even Buster Crabbe. Just
Who the hell is Buster Crabbe? Okay, Buster Crabbe, American two-time Olympic swimmer and film and television actor. Oh, Tarzan, Flash Gordon, and Buck Rogers. Okay, that is tough competition to compete with. Never mind, carrying on.
as his career was rising fast, Moore paused it all to serve in World War II. That same year, Moore joined the United States Army Air Forces. He wasn't sent overseas because of a knee injury from his days as a trapeze artist. but he still played a big role in the war effort. After training in Texas, he was stationed in Kingman, Arizona. There, he used his showbiz skills to create and coordinate entertainment for troops. Many of the soldiers recognized him from his movies and teased him about his roles.
Oh, fuck you. They were just jealous.
But they respected him. He later worked with the 1st Motion Picture Unit, making training films like Target, Invisible, which helped prepare American airmen for combat. He even spent time at the unit's base in Culver City, California. Moore said his service wasn't full of action, but he was proud of his contribution. He was honorably discharged in July 1945. Something much more personal also happened during his time in Arizona. Moore proposed to his girlfriend, model Sally Allen, over a phone call from the military base. She said yes without hesitation.
Aw.
She even moved to the middle of the desert to be with him. That kind of fast, wartime romance was common during the 1940s.
It was common for a lot of different wartime times.
But theirs lasted.
Aww.
They were married for 43 years until Sally passed away in 1986.
Oh, that's too sad.
She didn't just support Moore. She became part of the morale at the base, often joining in the shows he organized. People who worked with Moore later said that his love for Sally reminded them of the loyalty he showed as the Lone Ranger.
Why are we showing Tonto when we're talking about that? You guys aren't helping yourselves with this, you know?
After the war, Moore didn't waste a moment. He jumped right back into movies, aiming straight for the westerns. Between 1946 and 1947, he worked non-stop. He connected with big names like Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, and his writing skills impressed them. Moore took roles in several films, including 5 Gene Autry productions: The Cowboy and the Indians and Riders of the Whistling Pines in 1949, Sons of New Mexico in 1950, and both Barbed Wire and Night Stage to Galveston in 1952. These gave him great experience, especially working with major stars. One early sign of things to come was The Crimson Ghost in 1946, where he played a masked hero.
That's not the crappiest skull-faced costume I've ever seen, but... yeah...
Though uncredited, he also made guest appearances on shows like The Gene Autry Show and The Range Rider. These roles helped shape the tough but good-hearted image that would later define him. Then came the role that really showed his range. In 1947, Moore played Jesse James in Jesse James Rides Again. It was shot in under a month and cost $180,497. Moore's Jesse wasn't just an outlaw. He was a man trying to do right. Audiences were hooked. He was intense, quick on the draw, and had a dangerous edge that made the character feel
and quite handsome.
Real. The performance was so strong that Republic Pictures ordered a sequel right away. In April 1948, Moore returned for Adventures of Frank and Jesse James. That one was even faster to shoot, just 21 days, and had a $149,985 budget. The stunts were thrilling, and though Tom Steele handled the most dangerous scenes, Moore did a lot of his own writing. These two 13-chapter serials were unusual because most Republic serials had 15 chapters, but they worked. They showed that Moore could lead a franchise and play a layered hero. In 1949, George W. Trendle, the man behind the hit radio version, was looking for someone to bring his masked hero to television. He didn't want just any actor. He needed someone who looked, moved, and sounded like justice itself. Clayton Moore walked into the audition and declared, "Mr. Trendle, I am the Lone Ranger."
That is some like big balls move there. Just being like, all right, I'm your actor. Nope, we are not going to compromise. I am your actor now. When are we going to film?
That confidence wasn't empty. Moore had already impressed in Ghost of Zorro and had the kind of athletic background that made him perfect for the role. He had worked as a trapeze artist in Chicago and performed in the Century of Progress Expo by the time he was 20. When the first episode aired on ABC on September 15th, 1949, Moore wasn't acting. He was the Lone Ranger. But something surprising happened. Even though Moore had a rich, deep voice, Trendle didn't think it was right. He wanted Moore to sound just like Brace Beamer, the voice from the radio.
Brace Beamer? Who is Brace Beamer? I think that's who we're talking. Brace Beamer, American radio actor. Let's see if we can. Ah, shit, he was probably in.
It took a few minutes, but we found the final resting place of Brace Beamer and his wife, Lita. And this is right on...
It was not what I was looking for. I will link that video below. But we want his actual... Alright, so voice actor Brace Beamer. There we go. Well, you know what? No, this video is already going to be long, so I'll just link that one video below. So, but just know Brace Beamer was the original voice actor, and apparently our boy Clayton Moore was not up to par with him.
Moore didn't complain. He went to a vocal coach, trained hard, and practiced until he could match every tone and rhythm. Still, Trendle wasn't satisfied. In 1950, he warned producers that Moore was drifting too far from Beamer's sound and even threatened to replace him. But Moore kept at it. He transformed his voice completely, becoming the audio and visual version fans had loved for years. The result? His voice became iconic, and he made the transition from radio to TV feel seamless. The show wasn't just about one man. When The Lone Ranger hit TV, it became a sensation. Ratings were massive. Number 7 in 1950 to 1951. Number 18 in 1951 to 1952.
I love how he and Tonto are just having a nice little tea party in their own costumes. And nobody is just making a scene about it.
And number 29 in 1952 to 1953. But it was the partnership between Moore and Jay Silverheels that made it truly special. Silverheels, a real native actor, played Tonto, a major change in an era when white actors usually wore makeup to play such roles. Tonto still spoke in broken English, but Silverheels gave him dignity. Fans noticed. They said the Ranger and Tonto weren't master and servant. They were equals.
I mean, from what we've read from that radio broadcast, Silverheels is the only reason why the Lone Ranger exists at all. So no, it's not so much a master and slave thing. And even Silverheels said, or Tonto said that the only reason he saved the Lone Ranger is because he recognized him from long ago and they were friends. So no, they were never master and slave. They were friends. And again, it's just so bizarre to me that this fucking show from the fucking 50s was way more progressive than any show today, to be honest. I mean, yeah, that we do have diversity and progressivism, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that they tackled this concept of a native and a cowboy working together, and they do it so seamlessly without even, like, having any hiccups about it, is honestly quite impressive for the time.
That idea meant something to people. Yet, behind the scenes, things weren't so equal. In 1951, Silverheels earned $150 a week, with a $2,500 bonus. By 1954, he reached $650 per week, but still earned less than Moore. Despite that, the bond between them made the show unforgettable. And it came at the perfect time. TVs were popping up in homes across America, and families gathered around to watch the masked man and his friend ride into action. Moore didn't just look the part. He lived it. He trained Silver, the horse, himself. He performed his own stunts, galloping, leaping, and wrestling on screen, episode after episode. Even decades later, Moore would show off his skills in public, spinning his Colt 45s and thrilling fans. By age 71...
Aww, that's so nice to hear. That he actually, like, was literally living the character 24/7. That's so nice to hear.
He was still fit, still fast, and still the Lone Ranger. He always reminded fans that the Ranger never shot to kill, only to disarm. That was part of the code, and Moore believed in it. Then, in 1952, the unthinkable happened. Moore was suddenly replaced. John Hart stepped in, and the
the unpopular replacement.
Show went on, but something was off. Moore wasn't told why. In his book, he said he never asked. Some said it was a contract dispute. Others, including his daughter, believed he had learned about the huge profits from Lone Ranger merchandise and had maybe asked for a cut. But she
So, studio bullshit. That's why. Studio bullshit.
also thought he wasn't the type to demand money. Trendle, meanwhile, believed the actor didn't matter, that the mask was all people needed. He was wrong. During that year away, Moore kept working. He dropped the name Clayton and went by Clay Moore. In Radar Men from the Moon,
Claymore, get it?
He played a villain named Graber. It was a low-budget serial, and Moore accidentally broke the lead actor's nose during a fight scene. He also appeared...
When you shoot for the moon a little too hard.
In Jungle Drums of Africa, with Phyllis Coates, the original Lois Lane. These roles paid the bills, but they didn't match the thrill or fame of being the Lone Ranger. By 1953, Trendle had seen enough. He watched all 52 episodes with Hart, and wasn't impressed. Hart was stiff, his voice flat. He slouched in the saddle. Fans didn't connect with him, and the show was slipping. Moore had a new agent, the same one who represented Silverheels. Negotiations started. Moore didn't just return, he returned with a better paycheck. Hart was quietly let go. No explanation, no confrontation.
I think we know the explanation.
Moore simply put the mask back on, and the show was back on track. From there, Moore starred in 169 of the show's 221 episodes. When he came back, the chemistry with Silverheels returned too. Episodes felt right again. And even after the show ended on June 6, 1957, Moore didn't stop. For the next 40 years, he made public appearances as the Lone Ranger. He filmed commercials. He showed up on talk shows. He carried the character with him everywhere. He even recited the Lone Ranger's creed at events.
Aww.
In 1979, a court order tried to stop him from wearing the mask.
What? Fuck you, court.
But Moore fought back and won the right to keep playing the part he loved. Things also changed behind the scenes. In 1954, businessman Jack Rather bought the rights to the character. He didn't just bring Moore back, he spent his own money to film the final season in color, even though ABC was still broadcasting in black and white. He believed in the future of the show. Rather also took it to theaters. 2 feature films followed. The Lone Ranger, 1956, which made $1.55 million in the United States, and The Lone Ranger and The Lost City of Gold, 1958, shot in Eastman color. Both starred Moore and Silverheels, and both became cult classics. Clayton Moore stayed famous long after the Lone Ranger TV show ended. Through the
This is gonna sound super fucked up to say, but how many silvers did they go through with production? Because we all know that there were several different Lassies when it came to the Lassie TV show, and one of those dog movies, something in Otis, where there was like a crap ton of dogs who died in that movie alone. So it is macabre and kind of fucked up for me to say. How many silvers did they go through? Just asking questions.
1960s and 70s, he kept the character alive by doing commercials. One for Gino's Pizza Rolls in 1972 was especially memorable. It even brought back his old co-star, Jay Silverheels. They wore their full costumes and played off the show's famous catchphrase, "Who was that masked man?" This time, the mystery was about who introduced them to pizza rolls. It was weird, but fun.
As most commercials are.
And people loved it. Moore also did ads for Aqua Velva, where his deep, familiar voice made an instant connection. He never treated these ads as just business. He only took roles that showed the Lone Ranger as a hero with strong values. For Moore, the mask wasn't just a costume, it meant something. But behind the scenes, his life wasn't so smooth. In August 1986, just 6 months after losing his wife of 43 years, Sally Allen, Moore married again. Her name was Connie Crivello, and she had actually been Sally's nurse. That made some people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The marriage didn't last. By
Of course it didn't.
1989, it was over. Still, in October 1986, the couple made news for something heroic. They helped an injured driver on a California freeway. Moore was in his 70s by then, but still jumped in to help, very much like the character he played. After the divorce, things got tough. Moore was aging, struggling with his identity, and fighting a legal battle that shook him to his core. In August 1979, a shocking lawsuit hit. The Jack Rather Corporation, which owned the Lone Ranger rights, got a court order stopping Moore from wearing the mask in public.
Oh, fuck you! What the hell? That's such a stupid lawsuit to file. Seriously, fuck you.
Moore was 65. He had played the Lone Ranger in 221 episodes and made countless appearances.
Well, it makes it even stupider because it's like he is the Lone Ranger for many people. So to stop him from wearing the mask, saying no, this is a infringement on our copyright for you to wear the mask. It's like, but he is the Lone Ranger. Like, you can be a bunch of bruised bum-bums all you want about the fact that people want him to wear the fucking mask, but the reality is so many people grew up with him being the Lone Ranger, and he loves his fans, so of course he's going to do what his fans want him to do. So it's honestly kind of bullshit to tell him he can't wear the mask. Like, you honestly have to be a bunch of bruised bum-bums to be like, no, you can't wear the mask because it infringes on our copyright and it could destroy the brand. And it's like, he is the brand, you idiots. He is the brand. You're just stupid.
For almost 30 years, but Rather's company was planning a new Lone Ranger movie. They feared Moore's continued presence would confuse people and ruin their $18 million investment.
What? That's like saying that the presence of Adam West, and if Adam West were to like continue to like do a Batman persona, that would ruin their chances for the 1989 Batman film with Michael Keaton. That's the level of stupid we're working with here. And once again, fuck you.
On the day of the court hearing, Moore showed up in full cowboy outfit, white hat, and the mask. The judge asked him to remove his hat. Moore quietly left instead. The mask was too important to him. That lawsuit was more than legal. It was deeply personal. The judge, Vernon Foster, ruled that Moore could not wear the mask or call himself the Lone Ranger in public anymore.
Stupid. Just stupid. Sure, yes, he is not technically the Lone Ranger, but to many people who have watched the TV show, listened to the radio show, or whatever, or whatnot, they grew up with the Lone Ranger, and they grew up with Clayton Moore as the Lone Ranger. So, say whatever the fuck you want. He is the Lone Ranger. Like, fuck you.
It was a devastating blow. The decision relied on an old clause in Moore's contract and a past case where Bela Lugosi's son failed to keep rights to his father's Dracula image. During the case, Rather's lawyer cruelly called Moore schizophrenic and
fuck you.
Too old to be the Lone Ranger.
I mean, sure, but also fuck you.
Moore later said, "It felt like a slap in the face." Even the judge admitted he sympathized with Moore, but said the law was clear. It ended a chapter that had lasted since 1949. But Moore didn't give up. In 1980, he partnered with Foster Grant Sunglasses. If he couldn't wear the mask, he'd wear shades. He appeared in their Who's Behind Those Foster Grants campaign alongside stars like Raquel Welch and Woody Allen. In the commercials, he still wore the white hat, blue shirt, and red scarf, just no mask. Kids who saw those ads started thinking of the Lone Ranger as the man in sunglasses.
Oh boy. They are seriously regretting just shitting on him in court. Honestly, they could have very easily done the sunglass deal with him as the Lone Ranger. They could have easily done that, but instead they just decided to be dicks for no fucking reason. Like, honestly, the switch to the shades would have been perfect for like a modern reboot of the Lone Ranger, like a modern Lone Ranger in the modern times. That would have been a perfect reboot because, yeah, the domino mask is outdated for these times, but shades, like sunglasses, would have been a perfectly good transition into the modern times as the Lone Ranger. So I was like, why were you being a bunch of dicks about him being the Lone Ranger when you could have easily transitioned it. And you could have used him for merchandising. Clearly, Clayton Moore was important to the audiences, where when they replaced him with the other actor, nobody liked the other actor, and then they brought him back, and everyone was happy again. So it's like, clearly, you could have still kept him on as like an ancestral or like a legacy actor for the Lone Ranger and had him do merchandising for you. It's that easy. Why the hell would you shoot yourself in the foot over this? This is so fucking stupid. And he could have... Lone Ranger sunglasses. Like, sunglasses that were promoted by the Lone Ranger himself. Shades promoted by the Lone Ranger himself for the modern times. And you could have even done, like, an Old Man Logan storyline where it's like, Old Man Lone Ranger, and instead of the mask he would be wearing the shades, and he's just like watching his protege trying to be with him, like with Zorro. And it's like, oh my god, like, if they weren't such a big bag of dicks about it, they were sitting on a perfectly good opportunity. Like, my god.
It was a clever move. Between 1980 and 1984, Moore stayed in the public eye without breaking the court's rules. The glasses became a new kind of symbol. Then came the movie, The Legend of the Lone Ranger, released in 1981. It bombed. The $18 million film made only $12 million, losing $6 million. The main actor, Clinton Spilsbury, was a disaster. He looked the part, but couldn't act. His lines
so is life.
Were so bad that the producers replaced his entire voice with someone else's.
Oh, that's even worse.
James Keach. They tried to keep it a secret, but critics found out.
I'm pretty sure anyone would find out easily.
Siskel mocked the casting, saying the only question people would ask in the future was, who played him? The movie didn't even show the Lone Ranger in costume until nearly an hour in. It was slow and poorly done. Spilsbury won 2 Razzie Awards for Worst Acting. His career ended right there. The director, William A. Fraker, never directed another movie either. The battle that Clayton Moore fought wasn't just about a mask. It was about identity, legacy, and something far deeper. In September 1984, after 5 long years of legal war, the man who had played the Lone Ranger since 1949 finally won the right to wear the mask again. The case had dragged on since 1979, led by Jack Rather, who owned the rights to the character. But on September 20th, Rather suddenly dropped the lawsuit. Just weeks later, on November 4th, he died of cancer. Some believed that, facing death, Rather had a change of heart. By October 17th, 1984, Moore's agent received the letter that ended it all. Jack's widow, Bonita Granville Rather, wrote that Clayton Moore was once again allowed to wear the Lone Ranger mask. Yay! Just like that, the fight was over. But Moore hadn't waited quietly. While banned from the mask, he found a clever way to keep the image alive. He wore wraparound Foster Grant sunglasses instead. He even starred in their ad campaign. The public loved it. In 1980, he appeared on the show.
Here's the thing about like old-timey heroes that even though the Lone Ranger isn't popular nowadays, but with like old-timey heroes, you may not know them. They not be in your public consciousness. However, they are still well known and they are still well loved. So again, him starring in that sunglasses commercial with the wraparound glasses, and people loved it because it's the Lone Ranger promoting sunglasses. It's like, You may not like it. You may be ass mad that people like the older version of this, but people like it. And maybe you should take some notes from the older actor.
Show real people. The applause was so loud and so long that he didn't even get a chance to speak. Fans had his back. Over 1 million signed petitions. He personally received 500,000 letters. 2 years before the case ended, in 1982, Moore was inducted into the Stuntman's Hall of Fame. It honored his start as a trapeze artist and his nickname, King of the Serials. Then, in 1990, came the moment that defined his place in Western history. On March 15th, he was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers in Oklahoma City.
Yay!
He joined legends like John Wayne and Gary Cooper. That same year, he received the Western Heritage Award. In 1998, he was given the Golden Boot Founders Award, which celebrated his lifetime work in Westerns. These honors weren't just for acting, they were for who he was. Moore often said, "Playing him made me a better person." He lived by the Lone
Aww, it's so cute.
Ranger's code in real life. At every awards ceremony, he mentioned his old screen partner, Tonto, played by Jay Silverheels. Together, they had made over 200 episodes and films. But one of the biggest honors came in 1987. On June 5th, Moore was given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But this wasn't just any star. It read, Clayton Moore, the Lone Ranger. No other actor had ever been allowed to have both names on a single star. It had never been done before. That day, he showed up in full costume. Fans brought lunchboxes, comics, and silver toy guns to be signed.
Oh, it's so cute! Oh my god, that's so adorable! My heart can't take it.
The crowd was one of the biggest ever for a Walk of Fame ceremony. Even today, his star is one of the most visited on Hollywood Boulevard. That same year he got his mask back, 1984, Moore was added to the Western Walk of Fame in Old Town Newhall. He stood alongside icons like John Wayne and Clint Walker. Then, in 2004, his famous black mask became part of the Smithsonian's collection. It was the very one he wore after winning the court battle. That simple cloth
That's like an exceptionally big fuck you.
and plastic item became a symbol of justice. In 2009, the United States Postal Service released a 44-cent stamp of Moore as the Lone Ranger on his horse Silver. Few actors ever received that kind of national tribute. In 1996, Moore wrote a book called I Was That Masked Man. It told the story of his life, from winning the role in 1949 to the lawsuit that tried to take it all away. He wrote that he got the part by simply saying, "Mr. Trendle, I am the Lone Ranger." And he meant it. The book described the pain of losing the right to wear the mask. He called it a slap in the face. But he also wrote about the kind.
Alright, this is basically like, we know now. But now I want to know, from eBay, how much those Lone Ranger stamps go for. Apparently, eBay has been keeping track of my searches. I mean, $15, not hideously expensive, but still. Yep, there we go. Oh, that's like a stamp Damn. I promise this is a drug hiccups. Okay, hopefully it's been calmed down now. Damn it. You know what? Probably should end the stream now. I promise these aren't drunk hiccups. My body just hates me right now. So, if you like the stream, go ahead and hit like, comment, and let me know if you want me to replace the Slow Down Sundays with something different. I'm thinking about like a spotlight on older actors. But in the meantime, I will see you all in the next one. Bye.